Hello there, welcome to Talking Balearics with me, Martin Makepeace, in a very hot and stuffy August in Ibiza.
And me, Richie Pryor. And actually a nice breezy Mallorca today, Mark. We've got a breeze here.
That's
very nice too.
I mean, the weather's a bit strange because I mean, last week I was outside on the terrace and I won't say it was cold, Richie, but I was definitely a little bit of a cool breeze, which was lovely this time of year.
Well, what you don't want to do, Mark, you don't want to squint your eyes up. Do you know what I mean? Because it's
no.
Things you do with your eyes these days, you've got to be careful.
It's not good. It's not good for my Botox, that, Rich. How are you, mate? How are you anyway?
I'm well, mate. I'm really well.
Good.
Really well, thank you. Yeah. It's August, you know. If you're not busy in August, you're never busy, are you?
Yes and no. I always think August does go down in certain ways. I think that everywhere's full. Everyone's full to the rafters, don't get me wrong, especially the first 2 weeks of August. But there's a lot of restaurants that are empty because the sandwich shops are very busy. I think the takeaways are very busy as well. So I think it's a bit of a strange juxtaposition because everywhere's full, but the businesses aren't running at full tilt, if you know what I mean.
Well, interestingly enough, a lot of the professional industries here take holiday in August, don't they? You know, the lawyers and etc. all take time off in August because... so you can never get hold of a lawyer when you need him in August, to be perfectly honest, because they're all on holiday. And interesting, you should say that, Mark, that places are empty and everything else, because that really ties in with what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, we are, because I mean, normally we have a few subjects, but today I think we're going to be a one-trick pony. I'm sure it'll grow legs, and we'll talk about other things. What's that word, Rich, that you absolutely love using again? What is it that you use in every single podcast we've ever done? What's the word again?
Tourismphobia. Oh,
is it tourismphobia or is it tourismophobia if we're going to use the Spanish version? I mean,
tourismophobia here in Spain, of course, but tourismphobia that most people will see in the headlines if you read the newspapers back at home. And interestingly enough, I was contacted by an English radio station this week.
So you're talking about your little bit on Times Radio, aren't you? Which I think we should play the interview in full with yourself on Times Radio because I think it throws up a few interesting questions. So let's have a listen.
Protests in Spain against over-tourism may have been too effective. Officials on the island of Mallorca are pleading for holidaymakers to return, saying visitors are, quote, completely dead. Let's speak now to Richie Pryor, who's lived and worked in Mallorca since 1990. He runs a concierge service and he presents a show on local radio, Wave Mallorca. Morning to you, Richie.
Good morning.
So give us a sense of how tourism numbers have been affected in Mallorca.
I think it's been blown out of proportion slightly, to be perfectly honest. I know that we've just had figures released for the month of June where bookings are up actually year on year. Not in the UK market. UK market's down about 5%. But we've had obviously visitors from other countries such as France, Italy, Nordic countries. But I think the UK market has been affected. Whether it's been affected by this tourism phobia that's the headlines that you hear and see, I don't know. I think there's a lots of other factors that might be affecting the UK economy. For instance, price. We're obviously in competition with lots of other countries, islands, and I think you've been having quite a good weather in the UK as well, haven't you? It's put a few people off maybe travelling. I don't know.
Yeah. And do you understand the views of the people in Spain who are protesting, who are angry at the lack of affordable housing and the kind of flooding of tourists at this time of year?
Listen, on the one hand, yes, I do, because, look, we're an island of just under 1 million people, if the truth be known. There's probably too many of us just living here on such a small island. There are two sides. Obviously, we work 6 or 7 months of a season. We don't work a full year round. In Mallorca, you'll find in the wintertime, most of the resorts are closed. So if this was a thing that was happening for 12 months of the year, I'd probably understand it. I'd probably have a little bit more sympathy. But when it's only happening for maybe 6 or 7 months, and in reality, the actual over-tourism, if you want to call it, happens really only between June and September. My sympathies don't really lie too well with them because I remember what it was like during the pandemic. You know, we were obviously, none of us could work. The island works for tourism. Our GDP is about 45%. If you take into all the other people that work in tourism, you're probably looking around between 80 and 90% of people work somewhere in tourism. So there's not much else to rely on. If you go to the mainland, Obviously, you've got manufacturing industry. You've got other lots of big industries. But here in Mallorca, there isn't much else. I'll be perfectly honest. So, do my sympathies lie with the people? Yes, but they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be going against the tourists. It's a problem with affordable housing, and it's a problem that the successful governments haven't basically changed. It needs changing. I know they've been talking about change, but hasn't really happened, and that's the difficulty here.
Well, I wanted to ask you that about the sort of reaction from local government and whether they are responding to the concerns of locals, or is tourism just so important that the government just says, look, you've got to suck it up?
Well, yeah. I mean, the government understand that, tourism brings in, as I said to you earlier, 80 to 90% of our GDP. Taxes are, that's where all the money comes from. There is a fine line between looking after the people that live here and looking after the tourists that arrive here. You know what I mean? It's very difficult to distinguish between the two. There is a new government in. We've had a new government now for the last 2 years. They understand the problem and everything else, but they also realise that this is a massive problem. Living on the island, the rents are very, very high. We have a lot of people living either in tents or motor homes, etc., because it's cheaper to do that. Look, I don't know what the right answer is. I think I said earlier, there's probably too many of us actually living here to start with. That doesn't help matters. Our population's grown 20% over the last 10 years. There is an immigration problem, I think, as much as there is in the UK. There's a housing problem as much as in the UK. I don't think we're any different to many other countries around the world right now. There just seems to be too many people.
Richie, good to speak to you this morning. Thank you for coming on.
Pleasure.
Okay. What did you make of it, Rich? I mean, did you think you came across well? What were your first impressions when you listened back?
Well, let me put it in context, first of all, Mark, how I was contacted and everything else. They were contacting me to begin with to talk about tourism phobia on the southern mainland of Spain, in Malaga. Actually, they got some newspaper reports in Malaga, and I said I can't really comment in Malaga because that's obviously not where I am. I'm in Mallorca, so they sort of changed tact, and I said, look, obviously there are similar problems here in Mallorca. They wanted to know about, if basically are the protests putting people off having read the stories that they had read. Do you know what I mean? Put people off coming to Mallorca or wherever in Spain, Ibiza, Mallorca, wherever on the mainland. Is it putting people off? And what was the sort of situation here on the ground? I sort of answered the question. I probably didn't mention, which I probably should have done, that the fact that the last protest was on June the 15th, so quite a long time ago. There wasn't a great turnout on the protest. I mean, I think we blogged about this. The protesters said there was 30,000, and the police said there was 8. So it was a lot less. Just
let me jump in, just for the sake of clarity. What is tourismophobia? Because, I mean, how do you view tourismophobia? Because I think one person's view might be different from a second person's view. What are you thinking about tourismophobia?
The actual meaning of the word.
Yeah, the meaning of the word, yeah. I mean, it conjures up a lot of things, doesn't it?
It does. I think mostly the fact that the island is saturated with too many people, and that's causing a knock-on effect to residents that live here in Mallorca. And there's this fine line between looking after the residents and looking after the tourists of the biggest industry that we have here in the Balearics, which is tourism.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, figures say that our GDP here in the Balearics, about 45% goes towards tourism. I would urge on the side of probably nearly doubling that when you look at third parties who are not directly involved in tourism, but are in some sort of way, form or another. And there's pretty much, I imagine, everybody that lives here in Mallorca, Ibiza or Menorca or Formentera has somebody that they know is working in the tourism industry.
But where did it come from, Rich? What's your gut feeling? Is it the people who were just sick to death of being passed over, the ones who don't earn enough money to live here? Where do you think it resonated from?
Well, it goes back to the social housing market, doesn't it? It goes back to people not being able to afford to live here, whether you're renting or whether you're trying to buy a property. And I think I sort of did say that in the interview that this is not just a Mallorca problem or an Ibiza problem or whatever. This is a problem worldwide now. There are just too many people.
Absolutely,
you can't put it any other way. Unfortunately, our population here in Mallorca, and I imagine it's Ibiza's the same, has grown 20% in the last 10 years. It's something needs to be done with it. Whether that's immigration or that's housing, I don't know, but it's difficult.
Not just the population, but the demographic of the population as well. As it's grown legs. I think I break it down to decades. I think when the internet came in, it was a savior, but it also meant that anyone could work anywhere at any time. And I think We've mentioned it many times that the standard of living in the Balearic Islands is so high. You can have such a great life, bring your family up here, that people want to live here. And that has just put pressure across the board. And what it's also done is it's pushed up the prices of housing. It's pushed up the prices of real estate. And your normal Joe in the street, and going on, your children and my children simply won't be able to afford to buy a house here, will they? When the time comes.
No, and the other thing, obviously, it's putting pressure on all the services that you normally get offered, like hospitals, schools, etc. And one of the big reasons for that is something that you probably haven't really touched on, is that people are, in fact, living longer. A lot longer than ever before, which means that particularly hospitals have got pressure on them, because the older you get, the more you need the hospital. You and me are perfect examples of that.
Absolutely. I'm only 39, Rich. How dare you?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, maybe touch it, but with tax, maybe a little bit older.
Yeah.
Now, I blogged about it today, and I've got a lot of pushback, and most people are in favour of my article, but there's a bit of pushback as well. Now, they were saying, well, really, this is a thing that's happening in Barcelona. It's happening on the mainland. It's happening in the Canaries, but it is seeping into the Balearics, isn't it? I think more so in Mallorca. I think we've had a couple of very small protests over here. So we're not as effective as you. And I don't hear anything about, I've got to say, I don't hear anything in Menorca, and I don't hear anything in Formentera. I've got to say that. So I think it's specifically Mallorca first, Ibiza second, and the other two are probably just about getting away with it, aren't they?
Well, when you say that, I mean, as I say, as far as I can remember, and don't quote me on this, but June the 15th was the last protest. And I don't think the protest before that was last October, was it? I'm just trying to remember. So they're not like hundreds of, thousands of protesters, and they're not even 100,000 protesters. I think I worked it out to be about 2% of the overall population is actually protesting here.
But okay, this is an important point, Rich. I think you've blogged about this before as well. You're saying that those with the loudest voice are making the most noise, aren't they? And it's not necessarily a large amount of people. It's big groups. It's just people with a platform and with big voices. Now, would you say that the perception is far worse than the reality?
Oh, no, without doubt. And listen, Mark, to be honest with you, if I'd have thought this was a problem that was going to start affecting people's thoughts on travelling to Mallorca, Ibiza, Menorca, whatever, then I would have probably organised a protest for the tourists.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah, I think it's something we probably need to do, Rich, in the future, because haven't we got to push back against the lunacy?
Totally. I mean, why would you not? Obviously the hoteliers have done it. We've talked about that already with the billboards that they put out. All right, the English wasn't great, but the thought was there, and the right thought was there, if that makes sense. How they did it, how they went about it, probably not right, but everybody's up for criticism. And I would err on the side of saying to people, look, if we want to carry on as a destination as we are, we need to go out there and voice that we want to protect what we've already got. Mark, we both have said this. You talked about it at the beginning. How many times have we talked about this subject? It's a subject we carry on talking about. But
but what we've got to say is, actually, before we were talking about it now, you said to me 2 weeks ago, Mallorca restaurants are 40% down. Some streets are really quiet. All of a sudden, it's manifesting itself in reality. And that's what we were here to talk about today.
Yeah, totally. But I don't know if you read what I asked. There was a lady called Shirley who lives up in Soyer. She's got her website, Soyer. I mustn't get this wrong, or she'll kill me. SoyerWeb.com.
Yeah,
and Shirley lives in the valley of Soyer, that has had problems in the past, and I think the day there was a day that it rained here in Mallorca. So as always, what happens when it rains? Everybody's trying to get on a bus, and everybody's going to try and go to the destinations or the places where you can go and visit when it's raining. And one of them happened to be Soyer, and obviously it collapsed. The whole system around getting through the tunnel, etc., etc. It was just collapsed through sheer weight of traffic. Yeah, so that gets reported on, but that was one day because it was raining. You go there another day, and there's not on a sunny day. It's not gonna happen. Do you know what I mean? So the reporting of it, it's always, as we always say, Mark, devil is in the detail. You've got to really go. You've got to go down and look at it properly.
But Rich, can we start the fight back today, please? Because I'm sick to death of it. Because I just think it's
more than happy to put out a protest march.
Yeah, it's me and you. Should me and you go on the protest march together
with a placard? Yeah,
tourists welcome. Please come and see us.
Listen, we know that tourists are welcome here. The problem is that the minority are getting in the way of the majority, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's the radicals always. I mean, it's like anything in the UK. It's the radicals who've got the loudest voice. They seem to be getting in the way. Rich, let me ask you a question. In general, what's the mood like in Mallorca? I mean, I think July was quite tough. I think we had Dwayne Nolan on last week who was telling me that he was surprised how tough July was in Ibiza. I think August is going to be a really tough month because of what I said before. I see families everywhere at the moment who aren't the greatest spenders. And I'm sorry to bring you back to money all the time, but we are talking about economics here as well. What's the mood like in Mallorca?
I think very similar, Mark. You're talking about, holiday prices, I think, are possibly too high for people. That could have an effect on people traveling here. Hotels, you go online now and try and find yourself a hotel. Yeah. It's not cheap. Do you know what I mean? To book a hotel. Obviously, I think I mentioned this in the interview when I was talking about price. Obviously, we've got lots of competition out there. Turkey, Greece, Italy's, wherever.
Yeah. Greece is really coming back, isn't it? Greece is really coming back again. A friend of mine said the other day he saw a picture from some videos from Zante. Zante, which is a young person's destination, is absolutely full to the rafters. So I think Greece is really emerging. I've got a lot of friends in Albania at the moment, Rich. I mean, it sounds stupid, but Albania. This is just an example of new destinations coming into the market, which means we've got more competition, isn't it?
Listen, I was talking to somebody actually who's Croatian. I interviewed him on the radio, actually. Yeah. And I was talking about you might remember, Mark, when we were repping back in the day, we were repping Yugoslavia was an up-and-coming resort. Yeah. It was the new resort. We're talking about the early 1990s here. And then obviously the war started and everything sort of split up and everything else. But Croatia now is one of the big up-and-coming resorts. Yeah. And it's not expensive.
Funny enough, I was speaking to someone about Croatia the other day, and they said it's getting expensive. So they're in the same. I think they're kind of 5 or 6 years behind, maybe 10 years behind where we are, but they're in the same cycle as the Balearics, because beautiful coastline in Croatia, they've got an amazing product, and they're going, hold on a minute, why are we charging 10 when we can charge 20? Rich, here's a question, because you deal with this part of the market, same as me. Are hotel prices too high in the Balearic?
Well, Mark, it's supply and demand, isn't it? It's really. I don't want to comment on how hoteliers price their own hotels. That'd be right. I think that'd be wrong for me to say, because you know as well as I do, you're going to price your hotel on the demand that you.
Absolutely, and you're there to make money, aren't you? You're there to make money. You're not there to give it away.
At the end of the day, is obviously we're only a 6 month. I said that in the radio as well. There were only a 6 month season, 7 months, probably a little bit more now. But of that, really 4 months are the busy period: June, July, August, September. So a hotel or a hotelier or hotel group, whatever, are in their own rights to charge what they wish. Yeah. They will know themselves the load factors and everything else. And if it's not loading, it's not selling well, then they're going to
put the prices down. Yeah, as well. I think what's interesting going through, again, speaking about specifically Ibiza, what we've got social media driven audience these days as well. And the feedback I get is that the secondary businesses now are really struggling because, we have the 3 and 4 dayers, they come over. They kind of ignore the tourismophobia because they want to have their little Ibiza fix, but they will only go to the same 10 businesses, for instance, right? So the secondary businesses are really, really struggling, and I can't see any way back for that. Do you think we need to readjust? We need to change our business model, Rich, or do you think we need to, push back against that type of tourism? Because everyone says it's so expensive, but I said to friends of mine today, go 2 roads back and you'll find a local restaurant and it'll be a third of the price. You've just got to take the chance and do a little bit of research.
I think we both said this in the past, Mark. We probably do need a reset in what we're doing. And the perfect example, I've said this before, is Magaluf. Magaluf had an awful name. And I think you'll have finding the same in San Antonio. Yeah. Had an awful 10 years ago. It was, don't go, but the kids still came because the kids, wanted that reputation. That's what they wanted. But Magaluf has turned itself around now. And you come to Magaluf now and you'll see, I think it's 70 or 75% of all hotels here are 4 and 5 star now. The beachfront is one of the most beautiful you're going to find on the island of Mallorca. And I say that and I've been saying that for years anyway, but regardless of whether it was 10 years ago or not, it still was one of the best beaches on the island. There are some fantastic beach clubs, bars, cafes and restaurants on that first line, without doubt. When you go back to the second line, then you are obviously, second line really for me then is the Punta Ballena, but there's a lot of bars and cafes and restaurants and but mainly bars and nightclubs actually that have spent a hell of a lot of money in improving their facilities. Are they facilities for families, which is the way this resort is going? Is the question because if there's less and less young people coming, what have you got for families? What are you offering for families in that particular area? And then you go back further, I think there is where we've got that problem. Have we got the right facilities for what we are going towards, if that makes sense?
But but it'll be an organic process, Rich, won't it? Because I think what the Balearics is very good at is getting into line and seeing where the business comes from and changing your business model to suit the business coming in. I think the market decides. I mean, we'd like to think we're pioneers and things, and we build it and they will come. But actually what happens is they come, they go to a certain place and we copy that certain place's profile as well.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to touch on with the Balearics is, I mean, it's not all doom and gloom, by the way, I've got to tell you, because I think it's really important to put it out there. I think it's tough times for certain businesses, but other businesses are absolutely booming, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the haves and have nots. I think the profile back in the day when me and you in the 90s were in the repping world. In fact, someone was telling me about your 1993 Sunworld uniform the other day, Rich, which I thought was quite funny. But what happened in those days is the business was spread across the island, wasn't it? It's spread across the 7 and 14 nights. I mean, imagine someone checking in these days, say, I'm here for 14 nights. You'd say, well, what's wrong with you these days? You'd say that.
That's true.
So what would happen now, or what does happen now, it's really compacted into, in Ibiza I'm talking about now, is 3 and 4 days. I had a great comment on my blog today, which I'll read out in a minute, talking about families. In fact, let me read it out now. I think this is great. I mean, it might take a while, but let me say this is one of the best comments I've ever read on one of my blog posts. And he said, we travelled to Ibiza as a family of 4, just returned last week, and we had a wonderful time. But we noticed in general that Ibiza is now not geared up for families, even though we have the cash and we're prepared to spend it. As an example, we wanted to spend a day at a beach club in Playa d'Embossa, but kids weren't welcome. Even though the beach clubs were empty, they still wouldn't welcome us. I think it's very, very strange. The kids love the Ibiza boho vibe and chilling as well, so it was such a shame. I'm sure there will be venues complaining about losing money, but they're not prepared to adapt and they have no sympathy. And this is a great quote. In fact, I'm going to steal this quote from this guy. Here we go. Yeah. He goes on about, just basic general vibe. He said, it's not going to stop me coming to Ibiza, but it's a shame that families aren't welcome. And this is the really good quote. He said, Ibiza is still wonderful, nowhere can compare, but we can sense that it's changing. This is the one I like. It seems that by adding a bit of polish, they've somehow managed to take away the shine. And I think that is such a great quote, because they have. We've kind of added all the 5-star glitz and glamour, but we've seemed to have lost our way a bit with the laid back way of, of course you've got 2 kids coming. It doesn't, as long as the kids aren't causing a nuisance. These kids are 11 and 14, by the way, so they're not little kids going around throwing sand everywhere. And I just think now that the no families mantra that Ibiza has adopted, it's wearing a little bit thin. And I see lots of families at the moment in August here. There's loads of families, which as there always is. And I actually think, what are you doing? Where are you going? Because apart from, there's a place next to O Beach called Bamboo Coo, which is a very family friendly. The water park's closed down, Rich. That's gone. I suppose you've got the go-karts, you've got the beach, but you've got the normal pursuits, and you might have got 1 or 2 venues. But for families, there's not a lot here. And it kind of, when you tell me that Magaluf is gearing towards families, I'm thinking to myself, hold on a minute. I don't think Ibiza's got it wrong, but I think we're going too much in one direction and not enough in the other.
I would agree with that. And I think, well, listen, Mark, there's a business there for you, family beach club. Come on, Mark.
Yeah. No Bamboo Coo is. And the funny thing is, in my villas, I have mainly families this time of year, and they all say to me without doubt, they're all going to the same places because it's the only places that families go to.
Interesting enough, I can tell you another true story about obviously where we look and how we perceive sort of people and everything else, and the way it's going towards the 5-star VIP, etc., etc. A Spanish friend of mine had 12 friends that went to. I don't want to mention the name of the place, but went to a cabaret type place. Okay, it wasn't
where in Mallorca.
In
Palma.
Palma. I
Palma,
can
yeah.
tell you it was in. I can tell you it
Was
was
it
in
on the front
Palma.
row? It was in the front row of Palma, was it? Right?
No,
Okay,
no,
yeah.
I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say where it was. Where it was. But listen, a group of 12 who were willing to spend lots of money, but because one of the group had a pair of shorts on, they wouldn't let the whole group in.
Yeah.
I mean, how stupid is that? You know?
No. If it's 2 people, you'd understand it, but 12 people, you
Yeah,
kind
and
of.
they were, and they weren't football shorts, Mike. They were dress shorts.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
You know, it's like that's taking you a little bit too far. I think.
I think we're just taking ourselves a bit too much seriously now, aren't we? So,
Oh, totally.
It's
And that's
strange.
Spanish to Spanish as well. This is not even. It's not like UK people or anything like that. It was Spanish to Spanish.
Where do you
Mad.
think? Where do you think it's all going to end, Rich? What's the outcome of tourismophobia and the way the Balearics are going, or should I say, not the Balearics, because I can't talk about Menorca and Formentera. I think that's they're a whole different market. But I think Mallorca and Ibiza has a lot of synergy together. Where's it going to end with all this pushback and the tourismophobia and the way our market's going? What's your gut feeling?
Listen, my gut feeling is that everything seems to carry on as it was from before. The last protest was June the 15th. Are we seeing a difference? We are seeing some, we're seeing kickback. I wouldn't have been interviewed by Times Radio if they didn't think there was a kickback. Likewise, you wouldn't see the headlines you see in the paper either on this. But let's be honest about this, be realistic about it. Let's be truth about this. There is a problem. There needs to be a solution to the problem, but there needs to be sensible heads. And there needs to be I don't know, would you call it a round table of people, with different ideas. And it needs to be a mix of age groups for me. It can't just be people. Let's be honest, Mark, people in and around our age. And that's where government comes in, because governments normally employ 40 plus people. Do you know what I mean? They don't employ young people because young people don't want to get involved in politics. But it's important for young people to get around the table and start talking about this, because they are the future. They are the future. And that's what they will see, the future for their children.
I thought you were going to burst into song there, Rich. Our children are the future.
But
let them lead the way. Yeah.
But it's important that everybody gets involved in this.
I'm going to devil's advocate. You're not thinking the Balearics more than anywhere. There's vested interests and political posturing. That's the problem.
Of course, Mark, because it's a coalition government. That's why. Do you know what I mean? And we all know that coalition governments don't work. Look at the Conservatives and the Lib Dems in the UK. You probably didn't realise at the time, but when you go back now and you're looking back at things that were organised then, and you're looking at, and then you go, why did they say that? Why did they do that? And the same here. We obviously it's slightly different here because we have a Balearic government, and then we have a central government, which is also a coalition, actually, by the way, based on the mainland, and decisions are made from a political point of view, unfortunately, and that shouldn't be the way. It should be from, I don't know, from a resident's point of view, if that makes sense, that's doing good for the islands, in my opinion.
I think what a lot of people who aren't based in the Balearics don't realise is we've actually got 4 layers of government above us, haven't we? We've got the town hall, we've got the island conseil government, we've got the Balearic government, and we've got the central government. So you've got to get through 4 layers to get most things done, which I think is just, as I say, there's so much vested interest and political posturing there. And this is why the wheels in Spain just move so slowly. You can't get anything done. I think you said to me last week, your mayor, isn't he? He's saying
the mayor said 2 years,
and he said 2 years, and he's getting nothing done, is he? So it's going to take him another 4 years. But it is what it is. I mean, my gut feeling, Rich, is that we'll carry on as normal. We both know that the winters are incredible here. I mean, why more people don't come in the winter, I will never know, because it really is one of the best places in the world. I know people can take a pop at me, but the Balearics in the winter is just incredible because the weather's great, prices are cheap, the options are amazing. Hiking, cycling, you name it, you can do it. I think we'll carry on, and I think the tourismophobia will, sooner or later, I think if they start scaring tourists away, which it looks like they are a little bit, is there will be a massive pushback against it, and we will not see them or hide nor hair of them for a while. But I think there are issues that we need to address, and we've talked about it before many times, haven't we? I think we've got to have a proactive government who looks at social housing, looks at healthcare. There was something in the paper today saying that the health officials now want a tourist tax for health, believe it or not just Ibiza, that was Balearic wide, that they're saying that there's too much healthcare going to tourists who don't pay anything over the summer months. So they're pushing back against that as well. So there's lots of challenges there. I do think we can find solutions to them.
And I think, like so, Mike, if we're coming to the end, I think the most important message from us as a podcast here in Mallorca, in Ibiza, is: look, our doors are open. We want tourists. We will look after the tourists that come here, without a doubt. You're going to come to 2 islands, or 3 islands, or 4 islands, whichever island you're going to visit in the Balearics, that are beautiful in their own special way, have lots of great facilities, lots of great people that live and work here, and we welcome you with open arms. If you have a problem, then you know that we know that's sometimes going to happen, but it's a very, very rare occasion.
Absolutely. And my message would be, don't follow the herd, find your own way. Don't always go to the places that you think are going to be good just because some influencer online tells you they're the best. Try and find your own way. Know what you like, find it, do some research, and you'll be surprised, because not everything's ridiculously priced in the Balearics at all. In fact, you've got some very reasonable prices, but you have to go and find them. They're not going to find you.
Exactly. And I'd just like to end on today, also, is a big thank you to everyone that's given us feedback on the podcast. It's good to hear, and we're grateful for the feedback. And also, if there's any sort of subject that you like us to cover, or you're thinking of traveling to the islands, or we can help in any way, shape, or form, we'd love to hear from you.
Always surprises me. I spoke to a couple of people yesterday. I was at Ibiza Rocks Hotel for the Radio 1 weekender thing, and a couple of guys went, I really like your podcasts, but Richie needs to sort his camera out. That's what he said to me. So there you go.
Well, I have changed. I don't know if you've noticed. I have changed the background slightly. I'm
can see your beautiful face now, Rich. That's all.
Exactly.
That's all the crowd want.
I think that's where you see the difference between me and Martin. I'm the working man. Do you know what I mean? And Martin's, a little bit VIP-ish. Do you know what I mean? Well, he thinks he is.
It's a Rich, it's always a pleasure. Listen, the glass.
Enjoyed that, Mark?
The glass. Yeah, I enjoyed it as well, mate. I think it needed to be said, and I would say the glass is definitely half full, isn't it? In fact,
it's half full as far as we're concerned, Mark.
The glass is brimming over. You just have to maybe just find it. That's all. Find the glass. Stuff. Always a pleasure, Rich.
Take care, Mark.
Speak to you soon, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Make me dance.